Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. We're sitting here outside enjoying some smokes and some drinks, watching the Sooners beat Texas. Is there anything better than that, guys? I'm Steve.
Lucas.
Connor.
Jay.
And we all four apparently are here. So
We got a special guest. Jay, we've got a coach in our midst.
we have a coach. Among us is a big-time football coach. He's coaching.
He's seeing things that others don't.
He's reading defenses, exploiting the opportunities, leading to breakaway touchdowns. Jay, tell us how it's going so far as a coach. Coach Jay, you're on the pod.
Well, there's not a whole lot of top-tier assistants, 7-on-7, 7th-grade football coaches out there. So I feel pretty privileged.
But you're one of them.
Yeah. No, it's fun. It's good times. It's fun watching the kids have fun and actually getting to do a little bit of game planning and on-the-fly adjustments.
Now, how hard is it to figure out how much water needs to be in the bottle?
Yeah, it is difficult.
A lot of mid-game
Are
adjustments.
there extra electrolytes being put in there for him?
So when you're doing the laundry, do you add bleach to everything, or is it just to the whites?
It's just the white.
Okay.
Can we bet on the color of Gatorade the kids dump on you if you win the game? Yeah.
Well, I'll probably dump it on the head coach.
No.
But
Hold on, that brings up a serious question. Can we gamble on your games?
Yes.
Can we get
Not in the state
Can
of
we
Oklahoma.
get some help?
Can we get some? Yeah.
Not in the state of
absolutely.
Oklahoma.
I'm just saying, like, I need a point or two, one way or the other.
I will shave points.
Scouting report.
There's no question.
Will you hold out a kid who's really good in case?
Absolutely.
All right, good to know. Well, that's exciting stuff. We got a lot of exciting stuff going. We're getting some new announcements. What are we? We're here at June 5th. Happy birthday to my mom. We got a number of birthdays coming up here in June. We got a birthday this week for Lucas. We got a birthday coming up next week for Connor. This is just his birthday month.
All the best people are born in June.
Apparently.
'Tis the season.
And we are 25 days away from being done with this rinky-dink conference and having everything just matter more. It's exciting. We got the July 1st. We're going to break free and be part of the SEC officially. That's exciting. This past week, right? Am I getting my dates right? We got announcements on a lot of the game times. That was pretty cool. We don't have any 11 o'clock games, maybe the entire season if things keep breaking the way. At least not at home.
It's wild.
It's crazy. I went back and looked. A friend and I were talking about how many times we've had the 11 o'clocks, and surprisingly, over the last, since 2023 seasons, we've had a few seasons there were actually none. And several seasons where we went all the way to the Texas game before we had one. We had a number of seasons where 11:30 was the earliest, but those are all the exceptions. Many seasons we had multiple 11 o'clock kickoffs.
Was this on an Excel spreadsheet somewhere?
I started to Excel it, and I decided I would hold off
I'm
because,
proud of you.
yeah.
Well, most recently, too, the last decade has felt like
when it's just gotten
significantly
ridiculous.
more.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it had to do with that contract they signed where they had Fox and ESPN, and then Fox decided that the 11 o'clock is the prime time game for them for the
Big noon.
big noon kickoff, and so then we just started getting screwed repetitively.
Because we're the best team. That was the premier time slot. That is all part of the past. We are in real time slots, including Texas. OU Texas will be at 2:30, which means that's going to be one wild-ass Friday night and a very fun, relaxed Saturday morning as we get up and about and go to the stadium at our leisure. We'll get to yell at and scream at all the Texas fans for a much longer period. I'm pretty uncontrollable in an 11 a.m. kickoff. I'm absolutely inconsolable, weird,
It's gonna be mayhem.
crazy mayhem
It is gonna be
on a
mayhem.
2:30 kickoff.
I can't wait.
This should be the year that the Texas State Fair doesn't allow you in without a football ticket. They just should not let
That
people
would be nice.
in the
If
fair
they-
that
If
don't
they
have
were
a ticket.
smart.
I endorse that message. I think that'd be great. I don't mind people coming down to the city and partying and all that, but it's a dangerous, weird thing when they let all these extra people in. But regardless, it's going to be a fun atmosphere, a very fun, exciting time. A
We
lot
have
of
a very
excitement.
good 2:30 record,
Mm-hmm.
by the way.
That's right. Last time we kicked off at 2:30, Baker hit Andrews for a touchdown, for the go-ahead touchdown. That was big time.
That was so good. Looking back at that replay and seeing it be so dark, like the shadows cast on the field and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so surreal.
It's different.
I cannot wait. It's going to be incredible.
It's going to be so incredible. Just a lot of fun, exciting things ahead for us in the SEC, and
We're less than
Definitely
3
in
months
football
out.
Season. That's crazy. It's coming fast. We're going to be in fall camp before we know it. One of the things that got announced today that was pretty interesting was the playoff schedule got dropped. So we got the full lineup in terms of the different time slots for the game. So if I'm getting this right, I'm working from memory. So we get a Friday-Saturday setup that's 2 weeks after the end of the I'm going to call it regular season, but it's really the end of the conference championship games.
One Friday game,
One
and
Friday
3
game.
Saturday games.
Yeah, which is I
3 different
like.
time slots.
I have no problem with that. I understand then why it's a week and a half until the next group, which is going to be on a Wednesday, Thursday, because it's around New Year's. We have a New Year's Day. One of the games is New Year's Eve, and the other 3 are New Year's Day, I believe. And then it's another week and a half. But oddly, it's a Thursday, Friday, not a Saturday, Friday, Saturday deal. I guess it's maybe
Is
NFL
that when the
playoffs.
NFL starts doing their Saturday games?
I think so. And so that's my guess there. That kind of frustrates me that it's not the more traditional Saturday lineup.
The national championship game's on a Monday.
And then again, the national championship game's on a Monday. Apparently I'm guessing they know their business, and that's a good time to have it. As a fan, I would really like that to be a Saturday for many reasons. One, it can be a fun just sitting at home watching and getting the build-up for it. But it'd also be pretty exciting to, if you were at the game, to have that day. Now, I guess if you're traveling, it's fine. It is on MLK weekend, so that would be Martin Luther King Day on the Monday. So that would be a good holiday for everybody who's going to the game, which will be us because we'll be in that championship. Huh?
People get holidays off this country?
Yeah, well, people that work in real regular jobs, they get holidays off.
Interesting.
So one of the things that came up, I was looking at this and thinking, I looked up very briefly, could not find anything on this, so maybe it's yet to be determined, or maybe I just didn't look hard enough to see if you guys know. How are they going to position the games in terms of who gets to play where?
Which slot? Oh, where?
Who gets to choose? Because right now, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, in the prior arrangement, the number 1 seed got to choose their semifinal location, right? So my thinking is the top 3 teams should get to choose one of 2 things. They should either get to choose their quarterfinal destination so that they assign the destinations based on those preferences, or I could see giving the teams actually their choice of you get to choose either the semifinal, if you were to make it, or the quarterfinal. Because I'm thinking, well, if you're, let's just use OU as an example because it's easy. If you're OU and you're saying a quarterfinal game is going to be in, let's say one of them maybe the Rose Bowl. And you're saying, well, it looks like the team that would be the Rose Bowl would be potentially USC. You might say, well, I don't want to play the quarterfinal Rose Bowl because if USC wins, I don't want to play USC in the Rose Bowl. I'd rather the quarterfinal be the Orange Bowl. So I'm going to make them travel the entire length of the country. We're going to have to travel anyway. And you choose that. Or you could look at it and say, well, actually, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. We're going to choose, again, assuming we're the number 1 seed, just for argument's sake, we're going to choose the Cotton Bowl, and we are going to get to the semifinal in the Cotton Bowl if we get to that point, and now the next team gets to choose.
Predispositioned, yeah.
And because otherwise, you might end up with a team who is a number 1 seed or a number 2, 3, or 4 seed who doesn't play, who's playing someone who got a home field, and then might, by the luck of it, get to play in their own backyard.
Yeah, Florida State at the Orange Bowl.
Or Miami in the Orange Bowl, or LSU in the Sugar Bowl, or USC in the Rose Bowl, or Georgia in Atlanta, in different years. So it's kind of, there's some jockeying for position there. I don't know how they're going to do it. I think they should give some preference to those teams, but I don't know.
You can take anything for granted. You take whatever's most beneficial to you game 1.
But you're not going to have a game 1 if you got a bye.
Oh, you're saying we're number 1 seed.
If you're number 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have a bye. And so you don't want to be in a position where you want to be as, you should get the privilege of choosing a little bit versus them assigning wherever. I don't want the committee to assign it. I don't trust the committee at all.
And there's not going to be any bowl tie-ins with conferences.
Right.
I think what we can count on is probably the most unlogical,
Yeah, probably
arbitrary
so.
system of assigning teams.
Yep.
I think you're bringing a lot of logic that is great thought, and it's not.
probably
gonna,
haven't even
it's
thought
not
about
gonna
it yet.
Be used.
I'm afraid of that. I'm really afraid of that.
So I don't know. I like the option to say if you get a bye and if you're the 1 seed, you get 1 through 3 seeds or 1 through 4 seeds, however you want to do it.
Well, 1-3, the fourth would be determined.
Fourth will be determined automatically. Fair enough. But yeah, 1 through 3 seeds, you get that first pick. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then you
know.
still have to decide where the semifinals are going to be.
They'll probably precede every bowl game. They'll probably say the one in the 5, 6, 7, 8.
Or it'd be the
Or no,
it'd be
sorry,
the it'd be the 5. It'd be there's 16 teams in, so it'd be the 5, 16.
12 teams in.
Or yeah, 12 teams in, right? It'd be the 5-12.
Yeah.
Is going to play the
This-
winner of the 5-12 is going to
Yeah.
play the 1 seed
In this bowl game.
In this bowl game.
Yeah.
Which would be frustrating because that leaves the conspiracy theorists among us will be out with pitchforks talking about how they screwed
How
us
they
over.
chose it.
Yeah. And I can see it too. Like if you're, let's say that you are a TCU, let's say that you're a Utah, let's say that you're whoever, you could be a Minnesota who got in and you happen to win your game. You're the 12th team and you happen to win. You beat the 5 seed and now all of a sudden you're going to play OU in the Cotton Bowl and you're saying, well, this is doubly not fair.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That'll be weird. It's exciting though, like seeing the schedule come out. I mean, I still cannot logically fathom the fanfare that's going to exist with the 12 teams.
It's going to be so much
Those
fun.
first 4 games are going to be unbelievable.
It's going to be super exciting. I love.
I did not know TNT Sports got TV spots.
So
either.
we're gonna get Shaq. He's going to be doing a lot of the games.
They're moving inside the NBA to the college football playoff.
I can't wait to see what Barkley says about this.
They'll be fired up if Auburn's in there.
So it's really cool. It's kind of like it's sinking in of reality, right? It's going to be several months of this new reality sinking in, I think, and it's going to be really fun to see it change and the new landscape and the new math and what you have to be thinking about and worrying about. The old stuff we used to worry about is going to be different in a 12-team playoff.
Shift downwards.
Everything, yeah. It's going to, you're not going to be as concerned about a loss in some ways. You'll be more concerned about some others. Your relative positioning will matter. Obviously, we're going to get some opportunities or threats about worrying about that team that's out there in one of these lesser conferences who all of a sudden had an easy schedule.
Oklahoma State.
Tell me, Lucas, that the easiest schedules got released, and
it's based off of what was it, college football?
the CF.
It was
RPI.
It wasn't.
No,
the
I think it was
ESPN
just the win.
one.
I think it was the
Win-loss record.
one of them was the win-loss record from last year.
Well, regardless,
The one that you
based on
guys
something.
sent was based on the FPI.
Okay, and there's show the top 25 easiest schedules, and 14 of them were Big 12 schools.
That's unbelievable.
That was
actually.
interesting.
I'm looking at it now. That is crazy. So
It's
that-
ACC and Big
so
12,
read it
or
off.
like all of them.
Who we got?
first Big 12 team on the list is Kansas with the 4th easiest schedule. Second one is Utah with 7, K-State 8, Texas Tech 9, UCF 11, Oklahoma State 12, Cincinnati 14, Arizona 15, Iowa State 16, Baylor 17, BYU 22, Arizona State 23, TCU 24, Colorado 25.
So that does allow for some excitement in that you're going to. What is this?
She missed the tag.
She missed the tag.
Oh my God!
I'm not going to comment on Sydney Sanders. I have mixed feelings.
We're in the bottom of the 6th. OU's up 7-3. We just missed a tag on a runner going to first base. I don't know how she missed that tag.
I don't either.
How's it not out of the?
She
got
She
her.
got her.
Tag in the arm?
She got her. They can review that.
Let's see.
Got her.
Oh, it's really close.
Gosh, I don't know.
Are you allowed to run out of the baseline?
That was pretty far.
That was pretty far out of the baseline.
My understanding of baseline is a straight line between not just the point that you're running.
She steps all the way to the other chalk.
Yep.
She steps
She's
out
out
of
of
the
She's
chalk.
out. Yeah, she's
of the
out.
chalk.
So it's a lot of excitement. You're going to look at, and maybe this is something for the Big 12. They may go down to the wire of having teams that are in the hunt for their championship. Now, the thing is, you may have a champion out of the Big 12 who because they play each other, if they're all got the easiest schedule, it must be because they all suck. They may have 3 or 4 losses. I mean, that could be a championship game with 2 teams with 3 losses or something crazy.
Yeah.
And,
or you've got an instance where they're only getting 1 in.
right. Yeah, you've got one undefeated
got one.
Utah, and everyone else is a joke, and their championship's a joke. So what could happen, and we've talked about this before, is a team that's clearly playoff eligible, should get into the playoff in the SEC, who's the 4th best team, gets eliminated or doesn't get in because the team that wins the Big 12 does. Oh, that strap
She got her
hitter.
elbow.
That strap hitter. Watch the strap. The strap touched her.
moves.
The elbow hits the top of the glove too.
Strap hits her.
Everything touched her.
And she was 8 inches outside of the chalk.
You can see the tip of her glove turn when it hits her elbow.
She's 2 feet outside of the base.
I will be interested to see what the quote-unquote committee releases in terms of their criteria and how they're going to start adjusting for a larger pool and stuff like that. Because, like you said earlier, Steve, like the arguments that we had for the 1 through 4 playoff spots, it's just going to shift down to the, 9 through 12 spots.
Right.
So,
Well, the other thing you'll have, though, you'll have a team that wins the Big 12 that could be the 10th best team in the country by ranking, and they're going to get one of the byes.
Yeah, because due to Notre Dame's own fault, they actually, according to the FBI and ESPN, have the best chance of going undefeated this season. But they're not in a conference. They cannot get a bye.
They cannot get a bye, which they probably love. They're going to get the home game, and they'll be eating that up. But, yeah, there's going to be some controversy, and there's going to be some frustration. Somebody's going to get left out who should be in. It's just going to happen because you're going to get a conference champion that pushes some otherwise would be eligible top 12 team out of the playoff. That'll be frustrating. Even if they don't get a bye because they're not in the top 4 conferences, they're going to get in. I mean, somebody's going to get in that's going to be ranked 15th or 16th in the country.
Well, it'll be frustrating seeing someone. They call her safe.
That's ridiculous.
It'll be frustrating seeing someone like a JMU or something like that, in my opinion, where I don't think it's a. I don't know. There's no team that's going to make a run that's
From
James
the 12th
Madison
slot,
or something like that.
Now, as the landscape changes and continues to change, that may be a 1 or 2 year deal. And we may get to a point, and that may be the type of thing that's straw that breaks the camel's back.
That pushes it to
with
go.
with the 2 conferences saying, you know what, we can do better than this. And you get a Wisconsin that gets left out or whoever. You get an Oklahoma that gets left out, and you're saying, like, no, we can do better than this. We don't need to be competing against a team like James Madison getting into this deal. We don't need you. And you do get some separation within the current FBS landscape that divides it into 2 completely separate leagues.
It's just crazy to me that they think it is relevant criteria now to include teams like that. I mean,
It's frustrating.
James Madison's going to go play Stony Brook and other teams like that and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, okay, well, you're the one at large, so you won your conference, you're the one at large, like, come on in. And it's just crazy to me.
So we talked about this before, and I think I'm okay with the way that it's shaping up, although there's problems. That first quarterfinal situation that's going to be in these bowl locations, it is kind of a disservice to teams who could be hosting a home game and won't be. I think that here's pros and cons, and you guys can add to it or criticize these. One con would be you're going to have a very vanilla, uninspired atmosphere for some of these quarterfinal games because the 2 teams competing are from far away.
Yep.
The fans are saving their money
deciding
to
to go
go
to
to a
semi.
later game.
Yep.
And it's going to not be a fun atmosphere, and you're going to look up at a 65% filled stadium. Now, the pros would be, well, we got to set this up, and we've got to figure it out ahead of time. We can't just be willy-nilly. We just simply can't have a home game at Minnesota in January or late December. That's not probably feasible, or potentially not because of weather. And it also makes for a more competitive football, potentially, if you're going to a destination.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a terrible weather game in Minnesota if they earned it.
Yeah, it's football.
Depends on how terrible it is,
So
right?
that's like saying, we shouldn't play at Green Bay.
But Green Bay is an NFL stadium that's built for it, and they've got the facilities. I mean, if you could literally get a weather event that they couldn't handle at a Minnesota if they had good enough to host.
You could get like a Buffalo Bills situation where there's quite literally 6 feet of snow.
But that's still not.
No,
the
I'm
most
saying
likely.
I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm saying it's problematic because they don't have all the infrastructure like an NFL does to get the field.
Now you're saying this for the home game for the
home game
right.
on the quarterfinals.
But you can
the quarterfinals won't be home games.
No, but that's what he's saying.
If they were,
yeah.
You can also say too, though, like for how many years now have teams from the South had a huge advantage in every bowl game?
Absolutely, very very good point. And will continue in this environment because all the bowl games, aside from an Indianapolis or something,
well, that's what I was going
to
say. I think there's an alternative to the two where you establish 4 strategically located sites for the quarterfinal.
Yeah,
across Mid-America.
You've got indoor stadium in Minnesota for the Vikings.
Exactly.
You've got Indianapolis.
Dallas. You've got who could you go to towards the East Coast? I mean,
who are we forgetting?
That's indoor, East Coast.
Or you could, or like Southeast, like even like Carolina or something like that, or somewhere where you're
you want to have something for the
Indianapolis.
Big Ten. Yeah,
Indianapolis is where they have the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, Indianapolis, but or even like Tennessee, like Tennessee Titans stadiums. I think it's far enough north where you could.
Yeah, that's not far away from most of those places.
So, and then you find one stadium out west. You could do. I mean, Phoenix.
If they do it
choice.
Now, right now. If you look at that schedule and that graphic, they've got all the big bowl logos on there, and you're going to have to be, prying it away from the cold dead hands.
Well, and you won't. Yeah,
there's
too much money in it to, and that's I definitely think that's the reason you're seeing quarterfinal bowl games, is because of that quote unquote tradition that these bowl committees want to have and this prestige.
Right.
Where
the Peach Bowl is one of the locations, though.
Yeah, but that's become a prestigious bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a New Year's Six bowl.
But like for bowl games, though, people used it as a vacation from the north.
That's
right?
true.
You're gonna head south. It's warmer weather. It's a trip. It's a family trip. It's a whatever.
I agree.
But in a playoff scenario, that's not necessarily the case.
Right. And now I could see you saying, okay, let's be realistic, and let's say in some scenario you do again have. I'm intentionally picking mid-range teams from these conferences. Let's say that you do have let's say you have a Boise State against a Minnesota, and in the quarterfinal, I could see them saying in the grand scheme of things, for one of us for sure, and maybe for both of us, this is about as far as we're going to get. One of us is going to go to the next level, but we're probably going to not get past that anyway. We want to reward our players to have a fun trip down to Phoenix or something like that. So I see the value in that as well.
I do wish the quarterfinals were home games, though. I mean, all the aspects of northern teams having to figure out weather and stuff.
Make
to
it
your
work.
Point, if I'm a quarterfinal, if we're a top 8 seed, and I get told like, you are going to the Rose Bowl. It's like, man, I would have much rather went down the street to Norman for a ruckus of a quarterfinal.
Well,
if
you're a number, again, back to the scenario where you're a number 1 or a number 4 OU, and you got the bye, which is great, and your next game is the Rose Bowl playing USC, that sucks. Mm-hmm. That's good, and that sucks. Versus you, by all rights, should be hosting a home game against that.
Yep.
And it's beautiful. 9.5 times out of 10, it's beautiful here in December.
So maybe you flip it. What if you did? And what if they would have done the 4 first games as bowl games,
and the others home field.
Others as home field?
Who got the bye?
I think home field for a bowl game or a playoff scenario is a reward.
Oh, absolutely.
A bowl game is great. A home game is, it's not only rewarding players, it's rewarding your fan base, it's rewarding
money.
The administration.
It would be interesting to see what the coaches prefer.
Right.
Like, do they want that bye? Is that more important?
I bet they want the bye.
Oh,
like
you
Georgia,
always want the bye.
Everyone wants the bye.
You always want the bye, but if you could have the bye and the home field, because right now number 5 is getting a home field, and all the revenue associated with it.
They're getting an extra game.
Whereas a number 1 is getting the bye, but they're missing out on that home field advantage and that home field game. I like your idea. Flip it and have the first 4 games be the bowl games. Then you go to home field advantage, and then you go to the semifinals and the final. I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, a home field playoff game is going to be.
I'm telling you what, if we were at
It's
if
gonna be
we have a
absolutely
quarterfinal
wild.
game in Norman,
Well, it wouldn't be a quarter. It'd be a
pre-quarter.
Yeah.
If you want the first round game in Norman, I'm
that's.
gonna have to do a full week of pre-gaming so that I don't do anything on the day of.
It's gonna be pretty
It'll
exciting.
be stupid.
It'll
be crazy.
It's gonna be really crazy. Well, everything's changing. We keep talking about the changes in the landscape. Let's talk about how that affects some of these programs. So we talked about in a prior off-season topic, or maybe it was during a midweek, what the best jobs in football is. What are the best programs? What is the best head coaching job? Everything's changed a lot. Has that changed? And what changes would you guys identify as this is now a better head coaching job, a better program, which is a weaker one, which is one that has less to offer than before? You guys, any jump off the top?
I mean, USC, UCLA got tougher.
Oregon got tougher.
Oregon got tougher.
Because you can't sell the fact that you're going to be close to home every weekend on
Yep.
top of playing much more difficult competition,
Yep.
which I would define as 2 very critical criteria in a premier coaching spot. I don't know.
The Big 12
Maybe
teams got easier.
Did those jobs?
But they're not
get
more
better?
appealing, right?
I think
they're less
lesser.
appealing.
I think they're all lesser.
They're less appealing because of the potential that they're losing with OU and Texas leaving.
So I would say, to me, everybody in the existing Big Ten and SEC prior to this coming season, all those jobs got better.
Mm-hmm.
All those programs got somewhat better, slightly to maybe more so.
You got the West Coast out there.
And then the teams that are joining, I think OU and Texas upgraded. I think those are better jobs and better programs as a result. They're in a better position. But I think you're right. The program might be in a better position for USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington, but the jobs themselves may not be as appealing. I don't know if Lincoln Riley goes to USC in this environment. Do you think he does?
No.
No.
I don't
No
think
way.
there's any way.
He wasn't going to the USC
There's-
if they
there's
knew they were going to
no-
the Big Ten to begin with.
There's
No.
no,
And he wanted
part
out of the
him
LSU
wanting to
game.
play in the
Yeah.
Big Ten. There's no part of him that wants to play in the Big Ten.
No.
None.
His hope when he found out Big Ten was going to be the future for them was that he was going to have
Great
the great season with where they go 10-2 2 years ago.
Right.
He was hoping for another 10-2, 9-3, and get an NFL job,
which he didn't.
which he didn't.
And what happens
And
if he doesn't get one?
I had to buy breakfast.
Somebody has to buy breakfast.
I did that.
Where did you buy me breakfast?
What was it?
El Huevo.
El Huevo.
El Huevo.
El Huevo. It was great. It was delicious.
El Delicioso.
It was so good. But you're right. I think you're right. I think that was the
I think as
strategy.
soon as he saw that, he's like, I've got to get out of here.
Well, we've talked about it a little bit, but he might go get his ass beat this year. Is the clock ticking on him saying USC probably wants me out, and I don't want to be here.
But where does he go?
He goes
what
and
does
tries to get an
USC
OC
get?
job. He tries to go to get an OC job in the NFL
You don't think that, let's go back to the teams joining other
or
conferences.
Texas
get better.
Tech. Well, he goes to Texas Tech.
You don't think the Utah job got a little bit better? Because now they're the only ones really on the West Coast in the Big 12.
Yes.
I mean, Arizona State.
Better than.
But I feel like he can recruit from California
I don't know if it got
and
better.
bring those
I don't know about better.
athletes.
I don't think
But
to the
so.
Big
I
12.
think that their program can reach
I
better
think
heights.
home. No, she caught
snagged
it. Oh, she's so happy that she's going to get
She's
beat
shocked.
3 by the Sooners.
Dang.
So I don't.
I think the Utah job got better.
the job got better.
The program and job. Because he doesn't have to face USC at Oregon anymore.
I could get on board with.
What's the toughest team the Big 12
He doesn't have to face USC and
Kansas,
Oregon.
Kansas State.
But you also
he
have
has-
to convince kids to play in this little Big 12.
He has but he has the Texas pipeline open. If you can go 11-1 consistently in the Big 12, you're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think their
I
chances
think.
got better.
And win the Big 12.
Their chances
Well, if you
got
don't,
better. I
you're
don't
probably,
know if
you're
I don't know if it's a
contending
better
if you win
job.
the Big 12 you're in, obviously.
I think
Yeah.
their chances got better. I don't know if it's a better job.
I agree with Jay. I think the chances got better, but I don't think it's a better job because and I think the tail of it would be, where do the big time coaches go, and how, it's not just
There's two
the
conferences.
existing people. They're going to go to those conferences, right? I mean, they're gonna migrate to those places, and that's where the money's going to be.
If he wasn't a lifer, he would definitely be looking at taking a job in one of the two premier conferences. Every big-time, young, up-and-coming coach is going to end up in the Big Ten or SEC.
Right. So, Leopold at Kansas. Take all these examples. If somebody has success, we would be surprised if they stay there.
Leopold messed up by not leaving when he had a chance.
Probably
last
so.
year.
Well, so did Matt Campbell.
And
he's not
He had
that
a better
young.
job 3 years
And
ago.
I think
young guy.
Leopold is the next man.
But regardless, so whoever the guy is, we would not expect they're going to have success at any of these schools in the Big 12 or the ACC and not be looking to get the hell out and get to the big leagues, I think. And so that tells me it's not as good a job.
And
Their opportunity to make a leap to the next level may be higher, but that just speaks to how it's not as good a job.
Did any of the Texas schools get better in recruiting now that Texas has left for the SEC, where
No.
they're going to have better recruiting in Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, places like that for Texas and Texas A&M, obviously. But do
I don't
TCU,
think so.
Texas Tech, Baylor, Houston have more of a pool of the top Texas players because obviously scholarship limits and the other schools?
Only if
they're going to
Texas
get
got better.
They're going to get 4 stars.
Only if Texas somehow, only to the degree that Texas and OU are getting players they wouldn't have already gotten. Yes. So I would say yes, but only to the so
Well, if Texas is able to get
yes.
a couple guys that would have gone to LSU, a couple guys that would have went to Florida,
Yeah.
maybe a couple guys that would have went to Georgia
Yeah.
because they're in the SEC
If
now.
they're in on
that leaves
guys,
a couple
they
extra
would-
guys
yes,
to
exactly.
go to TCU.
That's
or Tech.
potentially true. However, and
I think OU
And,
and
and those
Texas-
guys are going to
however
play in an easier
somebody
conference.
but those guys that you're thinking are going to Tech or TCU or Baylor, they may now be going to Ole Miss or LSU or one of those others too. So at the same time that there's an opportunity
There's a
to
domino
the degree,
effect.
there's kind of a reverse domino.
I don't
there.
think OU and Texas steal that many East Coast players. They'll get a couple. But I still predominantly 80% of their roster is going to be local.
It'll be, and you'll see that number fluctuate or increase or decrease based on the first half decade in the SEC as well, right? I mean, OU goes and does really well in the SEC. We're going to start pulling guys from Bama and Georgia and stuff like that, where we wouldn't have had a footprint at all in the
Right.
past.
No,
That's what I think.
think we get some that we never got before. I
Right.
still just don't think it's many.
Well,
I mean,
think-
it could be 4 or 5 players a season.
Total. Yeah.
And
And
does-
that's
and
4
that
or
does-
5 less Texas kids.
And that
you
does
get.
open 4 or 5 of the guys that would go to OU or Texas to go to TCU
Yeah.
or go to Tech.
or somebody else. So what I think
Except,
happens
but I
is,
think you're right. I think they hit in Arkansas.
so it's and this would be the case even if they stayed in the conference. So if you're Oklahoma State and you're looking at the competitive situation, you might push the button to say, you know what, actually I want OU to be as good as they possibly can be, because I want them looking outside of the state, and I want to focus my
I
resources.
want to get the fringe
I
players.
want to I don't want to compete with Oklahoma for recruits. I want to compete with Arkansas for recruits. I want to compete with Ole Miss for recruits, because I can compete better than I can against Oklahoma. So at the margin, I could see how that does improve their lot in life, Texas and other Big 12 teams, to have OU and Texas now potentially so much better. The worst case scenario for them might be their dream, which is OU and Texas go to the SEC, are 6-6 every year, and they're laughing until they realize OU and Texas are in their backyard stealing every recruit they could possibly get, because that's all we can compete for in that ugly world. And then they are a lesser team as a result. So they probably should be rooting for us to succeed a lot, and because it's going to be more difficult for a South Carolina to come steal a Texas player than an OU to steal a Texas player.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, I could see that changing for them. It's a weird yin and yang for sure.
I
going
think the
back and
coaching
forth.
market and the job market in college football, if you put it all on a level plane, for the most part, even after realignment, it's probably not changed too much from what it was. I do think there are some factors that make jobs maybe not less appealing, but they make jobs harder.
Yeah.
They make it more difficult. I do think programs like you see Stanford and Cal move into the ACC, I think that is a step in a negative direction for them, where that's almost
a desperation.
That's
move,
almost a step to say we're on the border of dissolving our program, and this is the first step in that decline, because I don't know how in the world you stay competitive in college sports.
Well, they're not already.
Yeah,
They weren't in the Big 12. I mean,
so you're already,
outside of David Shaw had a
bad.
couple good seasons in the Pac-12.
when they were down
When you're
Andrew Luck
you're
era,
going to better, you're
Christian
going to a
McCaffrey.
better conference
across the
and
entire
you're
nation.
traveling across the country to go compete.
Yeah.
There's no way you can sustain
Those
that.
jobs went down for sure.
So-
Which Stanford's already one of the toughest jobs in America based on academic requirements.
Right.
And now you've screwed yourself by not even being able to keep the California kids at home because their parents are only going to see them play 5 times a year because they're not up and down the West Coast.
I would think the traditionally lower tier teams in the SEC and Big Ten, I think those jobs got worse.
That's an interesting
Mississippi State,
take.
Vanderbilt,
yeah.
schools like that.
I think Arkansas, what's Arkansas going to do, honestly? Like, they're
They have been relevant since Darren McFadden was there.
yeah,
I
but
mean, really.
but they had a chance.
Well, I guess
I feel like they
what's his
maybe
name?
had
Yeah,
a
yeah,
chance.
yeah, I agree.
I don't think they have a chance.
No,
at
I
all.
agree.
I don't think they do either.
I think they're done.
Well,
I mean,
and
they're not taking Tulsa players anymore, right? We've already decided we're trying to lock down the state like we haven't done in decades, right? You just fell a minimum of 2 more spots in whatever the pecking order already was,
Right.
and I don't know. I think it's infinitely harder for Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt,
even Kentucky,
South Carolina,
even Kentucky.
maybe Kentucky.
I think Mark Stoops not landing the A&M job for him is a really, really.
Oh,
it's going to be
I
pretty
agree.
not great.
I think that's exceptionally difficult.
I think it's
Because
yeah,
what
it's gonna
those
be really
programs,
tough.
whether you liked it or not, what they did have over other schools was we are in the SEC.
Right.
We're somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
Even if our team's not winning things, you're putting tape on film against the best athletes in the country,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
That's just even lessened.
No, that's a good point. I think you're right. I think all of those lower tier, the lower half of both leagues.
Purdue, Illinois.
Here's one of the difficulties with them.
Indiana.
They're going to be
Yeah.
even more so fat and happy. And so if you're a coach like a Mark Stoops or whomever, and you're trying to win football, I mean, you want to be a winner in football, your administration is like, you know what, everything's fine. We're making lots of money, and
Look at our
we're
TV
satisfied
contracts.
with this. And if you're a fan of those schools, you're looking at it going, are we ever going to be good? And you start to look around and go, wait a second, we're just a punching bag collecting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's what
Nobody
what
cares about
Vanderbilt
us.
is and always will be.
And now you can strike some gold where you convince a young
Boomer Sooner.
Boomer
up-and-comer
the Sooners beat Texas.
coach
Game
from
one.
a Big 12 or something to take an Arkansas job. But I don't think you're going to get a successful coach to take that job.
And if they are, you're gonna be like what we've always said about Oklahoma State and others. It's a launching pad to get somewhere else. They're going to try to get to one of those bigger named programs in the SEC or in the Big Ten.
That's what's so funny though about back to the Leopold and Matt Campbell is it's like 2 guys who didn't realize that they should be using these schools as a launch pad.
Yeah,
And someone tried to launch them and they did not take the
didn't take it.
opportunity. I mean, I know Michigan State is not in a good place right now, but Leopold not going to Michigan State is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Matt Campbell not taking an NFL job to go and freaking coach Iowa State to what they've become
yeah.
is insane to me. Matt Campbell didn't win anything at Iowa State. He beat OU once.
They went to one Big 12 title.
They
game.
went to one Big 12 title game and they lost.
Yep.
They didn't do anything. It's crazy. And now he's at Iowa State. Like, man, I guarantee you the next time Iowa State goes 9-3, that guy's gone.
Well, think about this.
But they won't probably.
They won't. They most likely will not. And he has lost his opportunity to have a showcase game that's a showcase surprise. Beating OU or beating a Texas is a showcase game. Beating, even if they're at the top of the league, a Utah does not have the same cachet.
Right.
It never will. And so
Beating any of those
you're
teams
going to
in the
be
Big 12 team.
scrapping
Any
for
Big 12
relevancy. You're going to be out there begging for someone to look at your program and respect you.
Give me some respect.
And you're not going to get respect until you win the conference, which is a tough order. And then you got it. Now you're in the playoffs, and you're probably not going to do so well.
Yep.
So, I mean, we know what's going to happen with those teams. Most likely, they're going to be the champion's going to be the 4th seed, right? Or I guess they potentially could be the 2nd seed. Well, they'll be the 3rd seed. SEC and Big Ten champion will be the 1 and the 2 seed almost always.
Yeah, toss-up between the ACC
It'll be the
and Big
toss-up
12.
between the ACC and the Big 12.
Undefeated Clemson
between the two.
Or undefeated Florida
So
State.
you're the 4th seed, and everyone's going to look at you for what you are, and they're going to write you off, and you're going to be saying you're going to be bitching and moaning, no
Probably an
respect.
underdog.
And you're going to be the underdog after your bye room.
Do you think an undefeated Utah Big 12 champion and a 1-loss Georgia, 1-loss Florida State, you think Utah gets the 1 seed?
No.
And the other two, you think
No.
a 1-loss Georgia,
A 1-loss Georgia would get it.
SEC champion gets
Look at the last.
I think,
But at
7
that
years.
point, does it really matter if you're 1 through 4 because you're going to get that
Well,
first spot?
it might-
Other than your opponent.
It might for the opponent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather play the winner of the 5-8 than,
But if you stack up the ACC and the Big 12,
or I mean, I guess it'd be the winner of the
5-12.
5-12
no,
or the 9.
yeah, the 5-12.
Do they reseed
6-11?
after?
I don't think so. It's going to be a bracket that's
The
set.
8-9.
So 8-9,
Really?
the winner of the 8-9. You want the winner of the 8-9. Think about that. If you want to be the 1 seed playing the winner of the 8-9, absolutely.
Yeah, but if they reseeded, you may get the 12 that just beat the 5.
Hey, yeah, that's
it-
unlikely.
You'd rather get
Give
the
it to
1.
me, though.
You'd rather
I'll
get the 1
take the
playing 12.
8-9. You'd rather be the 8-9, playing the 8-9 year in and year out.
it'll be interesting to see the ACC Big 12 dynamic, though, because those conferences are so interesting in terms of how they've kind of dynamically developed themselves. I tend to say I respect the ACC more just because of recency bias and all the teams I don't respect in the Big 12. But then you do add a Stanford, a Cal, an SMU to the ACC, and I'm like, man, you guys are just filling spots.
I mean, there's 3 names in the ACC that
Our names.
still hold water. I mean,
Florida State,
Miami's-
Miami, and Clemson.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're one of those 3 and you're 10-2, 11-1, they're probably getting 2 teams in.
You've got some recent national
I don't know if they
recognized teams, though, in the ACC.
The ACC and Big 12
North Carolina's
are fighting
come
for
up.
the
North Carolina State
Yes.
came up last year.
a second team.
a second team.
Yeah. Oh, big fight.
Big fight. Yeah.
Very difficult. And if you're an Oklahoma State and you lose the Big 12 title to Utah, and both of you are you're 12-0 and 11 or 13-0 and 12-1. You're in that case. If you're 11-2, you're really praying that Florida State, Clemson, and Miami aren't all 3 up there competitive.
Or there's
Because you got a real tough.
or there's 5 3-loss SEC teams.
But I think they're going to take. So it's 12 spots.
'Cause
I think you're going to get.
I think you'll take one of those.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're going to get one of those, and you're going to say, they lost 3 games to
I mean, human nature.
the top 3 teams
Human
in the
nature,
country.
just looking at
Yeah.
the piece of paper in front of you, is be like, these 2 things are not the same.
They're not the same. It's
They're
the
not
old
the same.
Sesame Street. Yeah, one of these things is not like the other.
Florida State, though, may turn the ACC into just a non-factor in terms of just every other team beneath them because of what Norvell's doing down there. I mean,
And what
they both-
Clemson
and what
is doing
Clemson's not
of
doing.
imploding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what Dabo's not doing with his program. I mean, Dabo's single-handedly destroying Clemson as a competitive football team, whereas Norvell is taking the polar opposite route, filling a roster with guys that, are just
Cristobal do the
guys.
same thing. Miami's
Yep.
paying everything they can to get
So,
every
I
player.
mean, the ACC may just turn into Florida State and Miami, and that might be it.
It's real weird. We keep hearing these rumors about lawsuits and backroom discussions about. It sounds like there is restlessness, to say the least, among the league. The ACC just doesn't look long for this world, at least for the teams that want out. And you've got to think that those donor bases, those administrations, everybody that's serious about it has got to be looking at it thinking, we have got to strike while the iron is still warm, or we're going to miss our opportunity.
Yeah.
Where does Notre Dame fit into all this scheduling wise? Do they decide
They
we
play a
just
good
need to have
schedule.
patsies on the whole schedule with maybe one legitimate game a season. That way we can go 11-1 every year.
I would argue that is the road to irrelevancy.
Yeah.
Because that works until it stops working, and people see it for what it
But
is.
you can guarantee yourself a playoff spot
Because
at 11-1.
Not as
for
an
a while.
Not as an independent, though.
Not as an independent.
But that name carries so much.
it
For
does.
now,
It-
it does. But once upon a time, Harvard and Yale were at the very top of football. And I know it's a century from that time, but things change. And people would look at it and they'd say, you know what? No, we're not going to put up with this injustice of this team that historically used to be really good and has a big name that plays no one and that goes, in that world,
8 home games.
they may not do very well in the playoff year in and year out. They get beat every
Well, I mean,
year
they
in
haven't
that
done well
quarterfinal.
in the playoff.
Now.
Yeah.
And so
In the BCS era. I mean,
and then everything starts changing. I mean, generationally, people don't have to like you because you used to be good, and so I think they're going to have to think strategically. This is not sustainable. To be sustainable, we've got to get to a position where we're competitive. I can't believe it. Stay independent and try to muster a respectable schedule. Because you have to look at it and say, well, in the years we happen to be really good, yeah, we're at the top of football. But in the years we're not good, we can't be the equivalent of the third best in the SEC. We're not going to get into the playoff. And the third best in the SEC will get into the playoff.
As an OU fan, it's going to be really hard to see it all get broken down at the end, where you have a win over Alabama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and you lost to LSU,
Georgia.
Texas, and you're left out.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, guys, come on. What are we doing here? Like, how can you compare Miami's schedule to that?
Right.
You just can't. And I know we sound like SEC homers all of a sudden, but you just, when you really look at it on paper, you're like, dang, we've got some games.
That's where
It's a flawed system.
That's where
And-
I think the SEC and the Big Ten as organizations will say, you
Form a
know what?
coalition.
We're going to have to do something different, and we're going to expand to 20 teams each, and to hell with the rest of you.
Yep.
We're leaving you
NCAA,
behind.
We are our own league.
We're doing our own thing. I think it's coming to that. Well, let's change gears to a different question, and that is when we look at the SEC and the new 16 teams that will be in next season, it seems like, and this may be a homer take, but what I get is the vibe of everybody's great, and they can't all be great. In fact, they can't all be getting good. So I'm going to run through the entire group, and I want you guys to tell me if those teams are ascending or descending. I want you to tell me as a program, are they actually getting better or getting worse? Both in terms of how, I know we don't play all 16 or all 15 opponents, but are they all getting, they're not all getting good. How are they getting better or are they getting worse? So let's start with OU. Is OU ascending or descending?
Ascending.
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 Texas.
Ascending.
Ascending. Georgia. Ascending,
top.
staying the
They're
same.
already
Neutral.
the same.
Stop. Yeah, so I'm going to
Like
call
we
that
static.
ascending if we
They
have to say
actually
that.
might technically
Descend
descend.
from the
They're
top.
just so
but
far
they're
up
still
here.
so far up there.
They're ascendant.
Alabama.
Descending.
I'd say descending
If you lose Nick Saban, it's descend until you
prove otherwise. That's a possum.
I know. It's fun. It's fun to look
I
at.
thought it's my baby possum.
Baby.
What's my brother?
Missouri.
Who left the possum in the studio?
Missouri's ascending.
Flash in the pan.
I would say
Ascending.
I would say descending.
I'm on the
Descending.
flash. The flash in the pan sounds right to me.
Yeah.
They're all in. They're all in with all their money,
If we're talking about this season,
and they've got the schedule.
you're just talking about in
I think we're talking about program.
holistically.
I'm thinking the program going
Oh.
forward.
I say
I say neutral.
neutral descending.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Tennessee.
Descending. I don't have any hyper-belief.
I say descending just because the two teams that got added to the league.
I say ascending because of what they came from, of being a relative non-factor in the SEC to being a team that no one really wants to go play.
I think they peaked.
So you
Only-
said descending?
No, I said ascending.
you said ascending.
Maybe neutral ascending.
Okay, I say neutral descending only because OU and Texas got
I'm
added.
more on
I think they've
Jay's
plateaued.
position. I think there's neutral descending. Mississippi.
Ascending.
Ascending, I think, too. I think a lot of it has to do with money.
I don't know how sustainable the transfer portal model is, but I think whatever Lane Kiffin is doing to bring in actual talent to that program is an ascendant thing.
I'll say descending only because I've heard multiple people well established in the college football world that have said Ole Miss is literally draining the local bank account and going absolutely all in. Like, it's a non-sustainable thing that they're doing.
I guess if you look at it from sustainability, yeah. And we've said that.
I would tend to say that too, so I'm going to contrast that in a second with a couple other teams because it's all relative. But I would look at Mississippi as a team that, for what you're saying, Jay, it's a strategy that works if you're Oregon in the Pac-12. They're not Oregon in the Pac-12. And I don't think they can sustain it. And I don't know if they've got what it takes. I think they're a lot like a South Carolina who will be self-satisfied with being pretty competitive and never force the issue to try and get truly better to the next level. I don't think it's sustainable. I think they're on ascension that'll be temporary and then some regression to a mean. Then I look at teams like a South Carolina. I think that they are potentially descending right out of the gate.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about South Carolina?
Descending. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going down.
All right. So how about a team that is, I think, a bigger name than they are a program right now, and that's Florida?
I think they're descending.
I mean, all signs point to descending with the coaching staff they've got.
Coaching staff, they don't have. Yeah, Napier is awful. It's very A&M-esque.
It is.
I think what they
descending
should
as
be
well.
and what they are.
Florida's
There's no excitement around that program, I don't feel
Florida's
like.
interesting
They're all down.
because if they kind of, lightning in a bottle, Florida can get right back to, oh crap, it's Florida. Here they come.
Right.
So it's really interesting. It's their next couple of years, whether it's with Napier or their next coaching hire, might go a really, really long way into what the next decade plus looks like.
They're a little bit like LSU where they have cycles of they'll go 3 years of doing nothing and then have 1 or 2 good years, and then they'll have 3 more years of doing nothing.
LSU is the next team I was going to talk about. I would actually say Florida's in a worse position because, at least traditionally, they're closer to South Carolina than LSU. They had success under Spurrier, but they had a lifer that wasn't a lifer, and they caught lightning in a bottle with Urban Meyer, but
that's all I've had.
Never.
Are you leaving out Ron Zook?
Other than that, they never were that good. And like, if you put one of the best coaches in the last several decades of football on your team, yeah, you're going to be at a program that is going to pay like they're going to pay and get players. You're going to have some success, but I don't know if they've got what it takes to be long-term success. So I think
don't be confused. I'm not comparing LSU and Florida on
no,
program level.
I agree.
LSU's
I agree.
definitely the better program, but it does seem like Florida every now and then.
It has a hint of that.
Yeah.
If I were to bet on which one going forward would have more of those, I would say LSU is going to have more of those successes than Florida. And so LSU, I would say, I don't know, they're kind of meandering. They're sort of, they probably are going to go through that cycle.
It's a pretty pivotal year for Brian Kelly.
The hire was strange.
It's I think that's a really good point because I don't think Brian Kelly's LSU material. And I don't think that he's going to be able to get what that program wants out of him. I think he knows how to win games. I don't think he knows how to get it over the finish line, though. LSU may make a playoff here and there, but I don't think it's going to ever be to the point where we see some, 2019 LSU team go and run the table with this team that's...
We had the Heisman quarterback last year
and
couldn't do it.
They did, yeah.
So I think you're right.
First-round receivers.
And the main difference between LSU and Florida as a program, LSU is the premier program in a state that produces a lot of talent, and they really do a good job of keeping them home. And Florida has so many hands in the cookie jar. That's why LSU long-term has the potential to stay stronger than Florida.
Florida just doesn't look like they know what they're doing. I mean, it's like, if you're Florida, Urban Meyer, and again, like you said, Steve, lightning in a bottle, but Urban Meyer walks into a room anywhere in Florida, and it's, Florida's here. Like, oh my gosh, the Miamis are saying, what do we do? The Florida States are saying, what do we do? The Alabamas who are there are saying, what do we do?
And all three of those programs were somewhat down when he landed.
True. Well, LSU has no competition in state.
No.
Florida's got Florida State, Miami,
of talent.
UCF is starting to get players. I mean, Florida's got a gauntlet of teams to recruit against. When LSU,
even at UCF,
if you're in Louisiana, you're going to LSU.
Exactly. I would agree with all of that. Texas A&M, descending
Always.
for sure, and that's even with. I mean, it's descending as a program, maybe just staying the same in terms of record, but they were right.
They just hired the coach from Duke,
and they were right to be mad about Texas joining the league. I mean, that's tough for them. That's tough.
That's why they leaked it 2 years early.
Yeah. All right, Auburn.
Neutral descending.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And
I don't have much of a...
And the others are kind of at the basement. We start with Arkansas.
Descending.
I think definitely.
Is their next head coach on staff?
Arkansas's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby Petrino is their offensive coordinator.
Oh, he's there?
Yeah.
And he got obviously fired after the motorcycle wreck with the neck brace, all that stuff.
Did they bring him back?
They brought him back in as the OC.
I mean, if you're willing to bring him back in.
After Pittman goes 3-9 this season.
Pittman, they had all but fired Pittman.
Yeah.
Right.
And like you said, maybe it was just, hey, Pittman, can you get Petrino? And then we're going to transition the reign back.
It would be crazy if he's the next head
So
coach.
I could totally see it if you tell me they have a year where the offense is great and the defense is disappointing.
Yeah.
Then they say, well, we've got our answer right here.
Or they start
afresh.
3-3 and lose
or they
to
just
some
say,
bad teams.
they get rid of Pittman and Petrino. They say, hey,
Interim.
we know you're
head
awesome
coach.
at the offense.
Mm-hmm.
You get your guys in here.
You can look at the dissension just right here alone. OU, we currently have the number 1 and 2 player from the state of Arkansas committed
Yeah.
to our class.
Yeah.
We haven't had that in a really, really long time. I mean, even the Arkansas high school kids see this isn't going anywhere.
Not that it's a hotbed for recruiting, though.
No, but it's still but the few they have,
who you
are like,
get?
this isn't going on.
So
Because when Arkansas was good, they came and they took a Felix Jones from Tulsa area. They, they just
they plucked away some guys.
Plucked away, and they're just not going to do that anymore.
No,
it's just not going to happen.
I think you're right. I think you're very much right on that. And the next two are just the basement of the league, Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. Differently at the basement, Mississippi State is I think a team that's got more pride in their football. Vanderbilt knows who they are and what they are and has no aspirations to be anything. They're the weirdest team in the SEC. If in a realignment world, I see money talking and the league says, you know what, we need a 20th team and you're not one of them. We need. Here's your check. You're not playing football in this league anymore. Mississippi State, to me, it just got harder for them. It's just they got more money, but that's all they've got, and I don't know if that money's going to buy them anything.
Did you say Kentucky?
And Kentucky's the other one. You're right. Yeah,
I've got Kentucky descending as well.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's in a tough spot.
Only because of the addition of the 2 new schools.
I just think that I think Mark kind of hit his peak. I don't think he's going to be able to. He's not going to get a.
Can they go 7-5 on a regular basis?
Probably
regular basis,
but that's descending because they've actually done better than that.
It depends on who they play. I don't know.
I think 6-6, 7-5.
They get the other schedule 2 years in a row.
I think 8-4 is an incredibly good season for them.
I would agree, and they've got the added difficulty of they got to travel to recruit into Big Ten territory, and that's tough to pull guys away who otherwise are going to look to one of the true competitors in the Big Ten. Ohio State and Michigan aren't competitors with Kentucky for talent, except a guy that Kentucky would love to have, and Ohio State will take. And they're going to look at Michigan State and those type of teams, and they're going to have a difficult time pulling them away.
They have the added detriment of Mike Stoops on their staff.
Yeah,
no defense.
It doesn't seem good. Yeah, so they only have to worry about one side of the ball since they're not going to play defense. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting to look at the league.
It's a top-heavy league.
It's a very top-heavy league. All of them are. They're all going to be fat and happy though. The money is going to roll. I feel like the lucrative, and it's kind of the resource curse. That could be a really bad thing for a lot of these schools. A good thing and a bad thing. They just get self-satisfied with what they've got. It doesn't seem like anything's wrong, and they get. And I guess a lot of teams have been in this position for a long time. You look at where the Big 12 was back in its heyday in the early 2000s. You look at even when the Big 8 was in a different world of football, and you had these teams that just weren't very good, but they were, for the time, making good money, making bank off of OU and Nebraska and what they were bringing in. So that'll continue to happen, but they'll continue to be schools that just look to be a spoiler at best.
Yeah.
They're going to hope to get to whatever bowl games will look like in that world. Well, let's end on, unless you guys have something else to cover, let's end on another question. So, Jay, you brought this up at dinner. I think it's a good point. It seems like not just in Austin, but throughout the entire college football landscape, everybody's just penciling in Texas as a high college football playoff team, a super competitive team to beat. Tell me what they lost. What did they lose? Did they lose anybody? Or are they bringing their entire successful college football playoff?
I mean, just their entire, skill position starters on offense.
Oh, they lost receivers.
And
did they lose a running back?
And a running back.
Okay.
And a tight end.
They didn't lose anybody on defense,
and a tackle.
did
they? Yeah, and a tackle. And, 75% of their returning tacklers.
So they
Not
lost
to mention
a lot.
Two, a first round and a third round defensive tackle that was a cog for the defense. I don't know. It's interesting because...
But somehow Quinn Ewers is on the cover of the NCAA 25 coming out.
I still think Texas is good.
Right. None of us are saying they're not.
And I actually think Sark's doing a very good job of getting out of his talent what previous coaches did not get out of the talent that they got there.
I think Sark knows who he is also as a coach and what he wants from his team. And I think he's got the players to be able to do it. I think that's the only thing that makes me nervous with Texas. Is I actually think, as much crap as I give him, I think he's a freaking bonehead. But I do think Sark knows the identity that he wants with that team. Flip side, you lose what you lose, and going into the league that they're going into, 11-1 consensus nationally is pretty crazy to me. I mean, that's a bold statement. I mean, they're second best odds to win the whole thing this year, I think. Last time I looked, second or third, definitely top 4. So
they did get the easier schedule.
They got the easier schedule. They do play Georgia. They do play us.
They play Georgia the week after us.
So
I almost think you can pencil that in regardless as a loss.
No.
Just because of where it's at on their schedule.
Well, one of the two is a loss.
I mean, that's just too hard to come off of.
Win them both.
They've never had to do anything remotely close to coming off of OU, Texas, and then playing a Georgia.
Yeah, even when Kansas State was good, I don't think we always played Kansas State after Texas.
Yeah, they've never had to do anything like that.
So I tend to agree. Maybe this is just the homer in me and the hater of Texas, but to me, with the expectations as high as they are, they're an easy sell. They're a short sell all the way. They have so much room to disappoint because everything is so much more difficult than what they've had to face. I mean, let's be honest. Last year, you watched their season last year. They barely escaped 2 games, right? They should have lost 2 games. I mean, yeah, you're right. More than that. I mean, 2 games that just bonehead. I mean, the guy at Iowa State dropping the pass and what was it at Kansas State? Wasn't it Kansas State?
Kansas State.
Yeah.
They what did they do? Was it a missed field goal or missed extra point?
Yeah, and botched the whole situation. Yeah.
It was a 6-point
or
game
misuse of timeouts
with Wyoming with 7
minutes
minutes to go.
Wyoming,
yeah, could have lost to Wyoming at home. So
they lost to a terrible OU team. But I mean, nationally, right? People just
right.
God.
As far as it goes, yeah. So I don't know. To me, and we had a poll question about this the other day. I feel like people are writing OU off where they're underestimating OU, I think, and I think they're overestimating Texas. Both can easily be true, and still Texas wins that game, and still Texas is the better school or better program for this coming season. I don't think that's necessarily true, but what are they in these early lines? Like a 9-point favorite or something against OU? Come on,
Seriously?
Yeah, it's 8.5.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Sure.
It's nuts.
And I saw a stat. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like the last 5 meetings have been less than 3 points or something.
Well,
like
and Steve, exactly to your point, I do think for whatever reason, the scales are. I think OU became such a constant team that underperformed when they should have won games, or didn't cover spreads when they were supposed to cover spreads, or played in close games they shouldn't played in. But I do think that the scale is much more balanced than what the national narrative is. I don't see OU as the 65-1 odd team.
Well, and I don't know. I don't know where that was from. There's 35-1 still on Bovada, so I don't know if that's real. But even 35-1 is.
I saw 65-1 from multiple things.
Huh.
I don't remember from multiple tweets.
Back up the truck. I want big money on that.
Right. So I mean, and I don't see Texas as a 9-1.
No,
I just don't. There's the league you're in, the teams you're going to play, the teams you're going to have to play additionally in the playoff, which maybe I'm undercutting this argument for OU because it's going to be a tough road, but it's much, much more equal than what's being portrayed.
Quinn Ewers had the running back for Texas was really good, got injured, still got drafted. Okay. They had a first-round wide receiver, a second-round tight end, a third-round wide receiver.
Was he the highest tight end taken?
I don't think so.
No, Brock Bowers.
Oh, right, Brock Bowers.
A first-round defensive tackle, a third-round defensive tackle, multiple other players, and it's just like it's a wash. And you compare that with OU, and you can argue there's definitely work at the offensive line to be concerned about, and we have a freshman quarterback. But other than that,
that's it.
The teams on paper, honestly, they're not even close.
They're not close.
Defensively, I think it's miles apart.
Yeah, unless Texas brings something no one can be foreseen.
Right.
They're miles apart.
Miles. We have proven.
Yeah.
We have 8-9 returning starters, proven NFL guys that decided to stay playing their positions, adding a big-time Williams, a defensive tackle, a couple other corners that'll provide
another
depth.
NFL first-rounder.
Yeah, and then offensively, skill position-wise, yes, you're leaving a lot, of hope in what your quarterback could be, but I still don't think Ewers was just some incredible quarterback. Again, we just listed off what he had around him.
Right.
And he threw like 24 touchdown passes last year. So,
right.
I mean, you should have Heisman numbers. You have 2 NFL first and third round receivers in a second round tight end in a third round running back in a
bad conference.
You should have at least been in the national championship.
Yeah, you should have 40 touchdown passes.
Yeah. And we know that if a few things went the right way, one being the rules had stayed the way they were, or if the rules had been called officiate the way the officials should have called them, OU is playing you in that championship game for the Big 12 last year, and you may not have even made what does the world look like if OU beats Oklahoma State, goes in and beats Texas in the conference championship, and I guess OU makes the college football playoff.
OU makes the playoff.
And Texas obviously doesn't. Is the narrative different?
OU may win a national championship should that have happened.
Yeah. Well, that's obvious.
No chance.
No chance, my butt, dude. That was one of the weakest playoffs I've ever seen in the world.
Yeah, that was pretty weak. I mean, that was if you were going to have one where a sneaker gets in and does it, that'd be one to do it. But besides that, would the narrative change, and would people still be thinking Texas is the second coming, and Oklahoma is a team that's going to struggle in the conference and is expected to only win 7 games?
I think
it's a drastically different.
I think
narrative.
Brent's first year, still has an
It's
effect.
weighing on everyone.
It's still weighing on people, and that Dylan Gabriel is somewhere else.
Yeah.
As much as we all agree that the team moving forward is a Jackson Arnold football team is better with him than a Dylan Gabriel, nationally, perception-wise, if Dylan Gabriel was in an OU uniform, I think the perception would be massively different.
I think you're right.
I think you're right, and yet I think there's a contradiction because I think if you ask those guys what's better for Oklahoma, they'd all agree the current course is better. Now, they may or may not agree on the 2024 season, but I think you'd press them to say, no, wait a second. By the end of the 2024 season, will OU be better with Jackson Arnold the whole way through or Dylan Gabriel returns? And I think they'd be hard-pressed to say where it is. Maybe they'd be looking forward to what the future brings, and you want to have a season.
Preseason-wise, though, you had
Pre-season.
Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Our narrative's different.
No one,
For
no
right
one,
or wrong.
No
From
one watched
everyone
the games
else.
like we did, though, either.
Right,
Like, I think we were probably amongst a very small, critical,
Oh, absolutely.
hypercritical crowd of Dylan Gabriel, and I don't think we were off base whatsoever. I really think the criticism was founded and relevant. I think you could go ask a lot of OU fans and say, if you could have Dylan Gabriel back today, getting ready for fall camp, getting his.
That'd be an interesting poll.
I really think you'd have.
You probably have like 65% say Gabriel. I feel like.
I think if you would have asked before Gabriel left, you'd have an 85% contingent. I think now you're going to have people so used to the idea of Jackson Arnold and what they want.
I don't know. I don't know if it'd be that bad. I think it'd be bad, but maybe
I
after
don't
the
know,
bowl
man.
game.
I still think people.
Maybe after the bowl game.
I think nationally too. I think people looked at the Jackson Arnold bowl game and were like, "Oh, I don't know."
Which they were so ready. I swear, if he doesn't throw the 3 picks or 2 of the picks that he throws, I mean, one of them's down deep in the red zone, obviously, that leads to a 14-point swing.
One of them's tipped.
And
2 of them are fumbles.
Yeah, and so if you look at those, if you remember when he hits number 15, the fast guy,
Johnson.
Thompson.
Yep.
When he hits Thompson, immediately it was on SportsCenter or ESPN. They're all over that. They're ready for that to happen, and yet then they flip and forget all about it because he has a couple of picks.
The throw to Anderson where he rolls out to his left.
Yeah.
I saw that
ridiculous.
replay today, and it's incredible.
So,
And we're bringing back a ton of
It's the
skills.
easy
fickle.
throws. It's almost really he messed up on a lot of
yeah.
young, easy throws.
Yeah.
Where he just didn't look his safety off, stared down his guy.
Well, that comes with repetition too.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when
And
you're,
also
when you're not
a
getting the
solid
starting
offensive line that
snaps
we didn't
the whole
have.
season.
Yeah. We had a
that
makeshift. I mean, it was equivalent of putting me out there at tackle.
was
It was
bad.
ridiculous.
It was really bad.
To me, hopefully wise, it reminds me of like a Bradford first year where he had a great first season and everyone knew he was going to be good, but no one expected he was going to be what he was in 2008.
That's a really good parallel.
You have
actually.
a lot of potential for a
Yeah.
Jackson Arnold to just surprise the world with what we can do.
Yep.
And what he can be. And really the expectation is so low, he may shoot up by game 3 when we're playing a fairly weak competition, and then game 4 is Tennessee.
I think
right?
I think if he shows up and lights up Tennessee,
That may be the whole narrative.
It's
The jump off,
It's
yeah.
the jump.
Yeah.
the
It'll
jump's
be
gonna
it'll be Sam Bradford against Miami in 07-esque.
Yeah.
Where Bradford goes and lights up Miami, and it's like, oh,
Or
this
what?
guy
Who
actually
was the
balls.
in 2008? So we beat Washington up in Washington. Or was that 7? No, it was 8 that we.
We beat them at 7 and 8. It was a home and home.
Yeah. So which one was in Seattle?
I think 8.
8. Well, I'm trying to remember what game would have been the one that really was the one that everyone just took notice of OU and Sam Bradford. That may be what happens in Tennessee, potentially.
Yep.
Even if we're just okay, right? Even if we're just a team who does go 10-2, that's going to be a total surprise to most of the national media and national audience if they get to that point, because everyone's writing them off. Everyone I guess we're going to suck on offense because if you're looking at it, how in the world can you expect we're going to be bad on defense?
I think the floor and the ceiling, at least from our standpoint, is very high for him.
We won at Washington 55-14.
Yeah,
and
that was an incredible game.
That was Jake Locker was going to be great.
Yeah,
and we destroyed.
That was one of my favorite away games to attend. That was super fun, and so I don't know. It's interesting to me to see this contrast with Texas, and the spotlight will be on OU and Texas entering the new league. Hopefully we get the respect that we deserve, the fact that we're playing a really, really difficult schedule. And quite frankly, hopefully it doesn't hold up. Hopefully it's one of those years where on paper it looked more tough than it was, and Texas has looked easier than it was. But regardless, I hope we get the respect of the fact that we're playing a really tough schedule. I mean, the number seventh. 2 difficult or seventh most, depending on what rating service you use, the most difficult schedule, one of the more difficult schedules one of the top 10 schedules.
And I think we play 6 of the 6 teams that are also on that list.
Yeah.
So it's a cannibalistic conference. You've got to quickly establish yourself as one of those teams that eats everybody else and doesn't get eaten occasionally, because if you can do that, and you can hang with the Bamas and the Georgias of the world, and not have those intermittent 3 down years that LSU has and Auburn has and those guys. And I definitely think there's potential. I think we have the right people in place to do it. It's just
Georgia's the only school kind of lined up for a potential of like a 0 or 1 loss season,
right?
Because they've just recruited so well,
and they don't play a lot.
But they
play Bama.
But the rest of
Texas.
The league, in general, there's going to be a whole bunch of really good 9-3 football teams.
Well, that's what Venables said
like
the other day at the SEC meetings was, we're going to have a lot of games that we got to go win in the fourth quarter because that's just how this conference is. And I don't disagree. There could be you could be playing a Tennessee in a 3-point game going into the fourth quarter, and you got to figure out how to scrape that out. And it's not just the Tennessees of the world; it's the Ole Misses of the world.
And Auburn.
It's Auburn. It's all those teams like that. So I remember we played Auburn in the Sugar Bowl, and it felt like a big deal because it was Auburn.
Yeah,
it was an SEC team, and now we get that every week. So it's just going to be I'm excited for the challenge. I think that the team's ready for it. I just want the team to be ready for it when it gets here.
To me, if I'm Brent Venables, I'm loving the situation I'm in, and you need to look at it as you may not, hopefully, you don't ever get this situation again. Yeah. Because he's got bulletin board material, he's got inspirational material, he's got challenge material all the way through the fall camp, all the way through most of the season, before everyone gets on your bandwagon to say everyone's counting you out.
The pride of moving into a new conference.
Yeah, exactly.
On the players,
and no one thinks you're going to perform. Everyone says you're going to be mediocre. You have the chance to be so much better. And you talk about a sneaker who can just come in and all of a sudden a contender. You've got an opportunity to capture that. So I think it's a lot. Like if you're Texas, you're up against a lot because you're trying to keep these guys inspired. Where everywhere they look, they're just hearing how great they are.
They're a team. They are Alabama.
They've already arrived.
Right. I think a 9-3 season in the SEC year 1 is a bigger catapult than any 11-1 season we've had in the last decade.
Oh, that's probably true.
I completely agree with that.
Depending on how those 3 go. Yeah.
But if you've only lost 3, that means you've won 3 that are really good wins too.
Right. Yeah, assuming you didn't just get shellacked in the others. But yeah, if you were competitive and all that, it absolutely is. And that is, to me, almost where I'm going to put the median expectation. I think our opportunity is to win more than that. Our risk is being off of 9-3. But I'm going to peg 9-3 as where the realistic goal is.
So you'd put the over/under at 9.5?
Yeah, I'd put. Yes, I would. I'd put the over/under at 9.5.
I'm still probably a point under that right now. I probably will stay there until we go and we play Tennessee and I can see what we.
Well, the thing that
we
would
are.
probably change both of our minds, maybe solidify mine and change yours, would be if we go in and see at the start of the season, into those first few games, that we have established an offensive line and Jackson Arnold is calm under pressure and knows what he's doing.
Yep.
If that's the case, things look fantastic. If not, worrisome. Very worrisome, for sure. All right, well, anything else, guys? Let's leave it there. We're going to be back in a couple weeks with some more fun talk about heading into the SEC. And until then, Boomer.
Sooner.